Welcome back to Sister Circle Live. Our next guest is a man of many talents. He's an actor and entrepreneur with a clothing line that has taken off. If you've seen a My God versus My Enemies hoodie, you've seen his work.
There's a company, My God versus My Enemies, the shirt Body of God. I own a part of that company. And I got my partner here with me today. And
so y'all donating?
Yes, we are donating from this is from the business.
Ladun.
Hey, Ladun.
Ladun.
Hey, y'all. What's up? What's up? What's up? Good morning.
What's going on, family? It's your brother Lawrence here with another episode of Watch God Work. And in Watch God Work, we kind of get to speak with brothers and sisters around the world who have just exhibited excellence in every area of human society, human endeavor, and culture, business, anything you name it. They have done amazing work. And part of our goal here is that we'll be able to share their God story, how God is at work in their lives and their work, and how they lean on him and how he's their center. And I'm just mad excited for the brother Ladun Thompson, who we have here today. Bro, I'll get the short story. I mean, I think initially we were introduced by my sister, I think. And then I think we reconnected again through my other sister, Veronica. And it was through that, obviously, man, was introduced through your brand earlier, but it was through that where we got connected. And you know, when I say that my brother is one of those, do what he said he's going to do. When he says he's going to follow up, he's going to follow up. When he says he's going to do the work, you men know that energy. That energy is solid. And so I'm grateful that we get to talk. There's so much we're going to cover today, so I don't even waste any time. My brother, welcome.
Man, I'm happy to be here, man. What's going on? What's going on?
Brother, man, I'm good, man. You know what I mean? We don't want to give our coordinates, man. We don't live too far away from one another. But
Absolutely.
with Jersey strong here. But man, it has been tremendous to just see your journey. We were even laughing earlier that, you know, it really didn't click to me, the arts and how much the acting, you know, how much theater, how much of that was a part of your journey. And I get to know a little bit more about it now. But part of the reason why I wanted to talk is that you have a lucidity in the way you kind of communicate how God has guided you, as well as a vulnerability. And I think that's sometimes a rare combination with a brother, a man's man, who kind of knows God, is really connected, has great relationships with brothers, and at the same time is very clear about God's impact and your need for God. But I want to kind of take us back, man. I got to take us back to Brick City, man. Kind of tell your story, where you're born, man. I already kind of give it away. Where you're born and kind of your journey to getting to the place right before that moment when kind of when Body of God was born. So kind of start us from that start, Genesis to current.
Well, so I think it started, I was born in Atlanta, Georgia. Born in Atlanta, you know, just being of Nigerian culture, my parents wanted me to, it's somewhere between my parents either wanted me to get the culture or I must have been bad. And you know what happens is when you're bad, man, you get sent away, man. You got to go upstate as Nigerians. You got to go out of town. So, you know what I mean? They sent me out of town for, you know, we went there for the summer, and the summer was like 5 years long. So, yeah, well, they bought us a one-way ticket, and we didn't even know. It was me and my brother. So we stayed in Nigeria for 5 years, lived there, went to school there, you know, gained the experience, man. You know, that's one thing about Nigeria. Was an amazing experience. Probably didn't feel like it at the moment, but it ended up being a great experience for us, just being able to be, you know, at home and learning learning discipline and a lot of things that, you know, were important about who I am today. And, you know, the humility, just being humble and overall, and more importantly, my relationship with God was like built there. You know what I mean? Because there's a heavy emphasis on faith there. And as a kid, you probably feel forced a little bit, but then little along the way, you do like create your own relationship with God. So then after that, we came back, we moved. I don't know. I felt like my parents just spun the globe and was like, yo, we're moving to Newark, New Jersey. I remember getting off the plane the first day, and then I was like, we moved into this project called The Spires. You know what I mean? So I remember it was like the classic New Jack City moment, man. We get out the car. I see kids running down the street, cops outside, people standing outside hanging on the block. Somebody had the Scully on with the beeper on the Scully. Get on the elevator. It looked like bullet holes is on the elevator. I said, what? My parents wilding for bringing us here. So we moved. We was on the 7th floor, got off. I could smell the piss. I said, what is going on? This is not the America I remember. You know what I mean? So after that, they put me in Catholic school for 2 years, which is St. Rose of Lima. Definitely got some great experiences there, just being in a school where there was a lot of focus on the arts and things of that sort. Joined the choir, began singing, a lot of just emphasis on faith there. You know what I mean? And big thing that I'm very interested in the future is like a school, because of the experience I gained that made me who I am today at St. Rose of Lima as well. Then, because I was singing then, I went to arts high school, and, I hear a lot of people go through this, even especially singers. At that point, I really thought I was going to be a singer, like in life, but puberty hit. I didn't have the confidence like now, like my voice changed crazy. And I was like, man, I'm going to the other department where my friends are, which is the drama department. That was sophomore year, went right there. And, I fell in love with theater, fell in love with acting, finished there. I just knew I was going to be an actor. I said, I'm not going to college. But I was still living under my parents' house.
I was like, you still alive if you said that?
Thought that was almost suicide saying that out loud. So they was like, my father was just like on. That was a very like tumultuous time for me and my father's relationship. Just because I was literally like I was trying to grow my hair like it is now. Then my father was like, it was like, that is a Rastafarian culture. Are you Jamaican?
Why do they get the accent with the I? Why the I gotta stand alone like that? You're Jamaican.
Are you Jamaican? And my father was like, yo, you're not doing that if you live in here. So I actually ended up going to Essex County College for the first 2 years. And I got my associates there. And I was doing little work. I actually worked on Chappelle. I was doing a lot of work on Chappelle, the Chappelle show back then. I was doing a lot of background work. If you really watch that show very well, you'll see my pinky here and there. You might see my arm. You might see you might see my face. You see my face a couple times, but they were shooting a lot in Newark. So like, it was so easy for me to just like, I got real cool with casting. So they were like, yo, we shooting in Newark. Can you bring your friends? So it was fun because it was like another level of high school for me, because I, graduating from high school. Now I'm this person that's the connect in Newark if you want to be on a Chappelle show. So I had all my friends on it. Then after that, I worked in numerous jobs. I was working at Sears. I worked at Terminex. I worked at Sears, Terminex. I did sales for what's one of these satellite companies? I can't think of it, but
it wasn't DirecTV at that time. I don't know. Maybe it was
Dish Network. It was Dish Network. Yeah, I was selling for them. I was doing a bunch of jobs. Everybody did the knife. I did that backwards because I did a knife job at the end. It was almost like the prodigal son. You do that right out of high school, not 4 years after high school. I have been the person in the parking lot that's telling you, oh, that cologne smelled good, but I got it for cheaper. And I'm selling all these little colognes for one of these cologne companies. I did all of that. I have so many jobs. Sometimes I drive past places and I'm like, I worked it.
bro, like,
so
you know what's interesting? This is so intriguing, man. I didn't want to speed past this part. One, the idea, because I think people could relate to, especially when you talk about the arts, which is why I think that the school idea is so dope and so needed. But especially if you're coming from let's say, a more traditional household. I won't even limit it to the diaspora from the continent. I won't limit it to the Caribbean. I'm like, anywhere where it's kind of education, they thinking like, yo, stability, doctor, lawyer, no less. But it seemed like you had an extended time under your parents' roof where you were able to explore that, from the singing piece then to when you moved over to the drama piece. Like, talk about that dynamic and kind of how that framed what that dynamic was. 'Cause I think people could relate to that.
Singing to drama, that was all high school. So like my parents were just happy that I was going to a magnet high school in Newark, because I'm not in one of the other schools where you watch on the news where people driving cars through the gym, there's kids getting shot. Like, this is just things going on. But if you were at arts high school, science high school, or university high school at the time, it was almost like being in like a private school. So I loved arts high school. It was like being at Fame, like the TV show. Like, kids, it's so much different now. Like back then, we were really walking through the high school talking about to be or not to be, and then you had the drama major. I mean, you had the kids walking through with their violins. You had the TV majors. You had the artists just posted up in the hallway drawing. It was different. But, my parents, I don't know. They probably, if they could redo it, well, God rest my soul, my father's. But I know for a fact, he definitely would like have sent me to science high school if he knew that arts high school was going to affect me the way it did, because he was just like, I think he was just happy to get me into a private, like into a magnet school. He didn't know that I was really going to like it, like there, and decide to go into that major. So like, that. And then after I graduated from high school, I always knew, like, I just always had an entrepreneurial spirit to an extent, or maybe not the entrepreneurial spirit in my mind. I probably really just is more like, I like to be independent. I like to prove my parents. I like to prove people wrong that you don't have to be a broke, starving actor. Eventually I starved. So eventually the starving happened, but not for long. I'm never in a space where like, after I left, after a couple jobs, I ended up going to King University. Well, let me see. King University kicked off, and I'm just trying to get the timeline right. Well, somewhere between, after all those jobs, I ended up moving to California for a year. I was throwing parties at this time. Yeah, that's what happens. I was throwing parties. I was seeing some money, and I was seeing enough money where, and I had a flight pass with United because I had a friend who worked there, so I didn't pay to fly.
Remember those days?
Yeah. So I'm showing people like life is like, people like, yo, Ladun's life is crazy. He has an apartment in LA, but he's back in Jersey on the weekends because he throws parties every Friday and Saturday. So life was kind of crazy at that point in time. And then I ended up going to King University because I was just like, you know what? I'm listening to Denzel, and one of the biggest things he focused on was like, if you're going to be a great actor, like theater is so important. So I was like, whatever you say, Dad, in my head, you know what I mean? So I end up going to King University, getting my degree in theater, which was an amazing experience. I mean, for me as an actor, I tell people, go to college, man. Go to school for theater, go through those programs, go through the rigorous programs they have for you that you probably don't feel like you'll ever use. But knowing art history is important. There's a lot of actors out there that have no experience with theater or anything like that, but to know some of the great works, to be able to reference those things is important to me. And then the party scene was really my thing for a minute after graduating from School of Theater. I was, doing a lot of background work. I did so many TV shows, movies. Sometimes I come across certain movies and I'm like, I was on there. Yeah, you know what I mean? And that's just how it was. I was a jack, and not to this day. Like, there are not too many people I feel like can do everything. There's like 1 in 100 people, maybe 1 in 1,000 people that can actually do everything that they are involved in. You know what I mean? I don't suggest it to most people because I feel like, I do know for a fact, if you're focused on one thing solid, you can be amazing at it. But I do feel like I'm one of those people that can be focused on 5 things solidly and they will all be amazing. But, that's something that time will tell. You know what I mean? Like, when my legacy will tell. But like, you know what I mean? So at this point, like I said, I'm doing parties, and I think what happened that made me, so the parties was cool. That's where we are. We're at the party
see where you're going. I was gonna hop in. I was just like, man, there was a transition, but continue.
Oh, so the transition from party to the cup to the brand?
Yeah, because
okay, I'm
go jump, but keep going, because I was like, I saw that you're good turning, so keep going.
So yeah, it was rocking. The parties was cool, and then I got into a relationship. So a relationship, and then the relationship was a very public relationship. Social media was just popping. I ended up moving. Something I never did. I moved in with somebody. It was like, it was cool. And then you put all your faith into a person, and it's no shade to a person. It's just the way life is. You cannot, God has to be first. Mm-hmm. Somewhere there's a space between. There's number one, God. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 should be empty to me.
Just to leave some space. Just to leave some.
Because no one could be that close to God. You know what I mean? I think the space has to be there. And when you get married, that person can become number 2.
Yes, exactly.
Marriage, that person become number 2. They elevate the number 2. But before that, I definitely put that person at 1, and I put God probably at 2. And I think that in that situation, like little by little, there were things that were shown to me that was just like, you're putting this person before God, and you serve a jealous God. So if God has to remove that thing, I'm giving you the warning that you should put God first. But instead, I was like, nah, I'm in love. I watched The Notebook. This is love. I'm not doing that. So then if God has to do it, it's going to hurt. So now, break up. This person just wakes up one day, is like, nah, I don't want to be in a relationship anymore. I'm good. Me, I'm like, what? I don't understand that. So anyway, regardless of the situation, break up. There's this transition I go through where I'm just like super like depressed about this situation. And then even my focus wasn't on anything at the time. I felt like I literally it was hard to focus. The party game was kind of weird. I just wasn't into it anymore. I wasn't into a lot of things. I ended up at that point in time, I was just like, I was going through a lot. Like a car got repossessed. I was borderline at this place where I was about to get evicted just because I just like everything just seemed tumultuous. Luckily, just being I'll tell you this much. I was working at Amazon at this point. This is when I felt like the prodigal son at this point, man. I'm this person that has been here, and now I'm here at working at Amazon, catching buses and Ubers and trains. I really felt like the prodigal son when he's eating out of the same thing with the pigs. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. But I was like, all right, cool. You know what? All right, God, I get it. So I'm leaning solely on God now for a solid year. I'm like 100%. My focus is totally on just being in alignment with God. And you know what I mean? I had to, focus on accountability, the people I'm around, a lot of self-work, a lot of self-love, giving, appreciating the things around you. This is the amazing thing about it, coming from a Nigerian household. I was like, can I come back home? Mm-hmm. And I was like, sure. And when you're heading back to the house, you're like, yo, this is gonna suck. But when you finally get into the house and it's that first day, you come downstairs and your mom's like, you want something to eat? That's like, you're like, yo, this is amazing. I can eat ever. I can eat like fufu. I can eat whatever. Like, I'm like, yo, this is amazing. Like, the love is there. They treat you like you ain't never left. And it's like, yo, it's like, this is the prime example of like what the prodigal son situation was like. And I really even went through that. Like, I had like one of my brothers, they can watch this all they want. I definitely had one brother was like, yo, he really left. And y'all just welcome him back.
Yeah,
like,
parents are
he was out here in these streets.
You're always their child, man. You're always their child.
They're like, yo, he was in these streets. He out here partying, Instagram was just like I was just living like this crazy life at the time. It wasn't crazy before, and in the Nigerian house was crazy. Like this kid's in LA, like just doing his own thing. He might be around a celebrity, he might not. You don't know where. You might look up and you call him, and he's like, "Yo, I'm in Hawaii for what? I don't know." Like so. I had one brother that was just like, "Yo, I just find it crazy that you left and everybody just welcomed you back." Like,
brother, so what I think is dope about this is what I'm loving, and I want you to share all of this stuff. I think when people talk and see people and they see brands, there's this called false precision that they place upon the path, that how they got there. Like you sat one day, you're sitting on the rock somewhere, and then God spoke to you in Hoboken, and then you were like, "Yo, man, I'm gonna go and I'm gonna do this stuff." Versus, I had a real life, and I was not sure. I think so many people are afraid to say, "I was not sure where I was going. I was not sure what I was doing." And even those who are even successful, and we can talk about it, like, you're not fully sure. You're
still don't know what's going on.
And people think you. So this is why it was intentional to like you to share all of that, all the detail of that, because I think when people see, as we'll get to now, as you kind of talk about that valley, that difficult moment that people could relate to, and you kind of felt you're all out of sorts, and then you're trying to kind of now turn the corner, you back home, now kind of take us to you giving birth to this thing.
So in this space, now I'm back at the crib and I'm like, yo, what's next? Like, the one thing I've never been into fashion. Like, like I buy clothes I'm up to date fashion wise, but I never in my mind said, I'm going to start a clothing line that I'm going to make a living off. It was more like, one thing that I did see was like, I used to see people wearing like a lot of Muslim brands, and it was like, and I still would wear them, like, because I know they still had certain messages on them, and they might have had like some indications of Islam somewhere on there. And I was like, cool, these are cool. Well, why don't you have one for like of the Christian faith? You know what I mean? But not only just of the Christian faith, but then could be applied to a place where, it's not about religion, it's about relationships, you know what I mean, where people can state who they are without really ever having to open their mouth. So that's kind of where the brand actually began to surface. So one day I just was like, I'm gonna make 20 shirts and I'm gonna see what happens. And I sold those 20 shirts, and I was like, that was easy. I was like, why don't I do 50 shirts? And the next thing you know, it's 100 shirts. The next thing I was like,
was this online? So was this in person? Because you saw the hustle. I don't think people understand.
This was hand to hand at first. It was like,
come pick. I have to call this out.
I'm like, yo, come pick it.
I call that like the Broad Street hustle. You were on some hand to hand combat. I don't think people who know that from
box. I had a box in my car. They was folded up. I'm pulling it out. It's got lint on it. They like, yo, I want it anyway. To the, fast forwarding to a place where I was like, yo, I need a little bit more money to make this happen. So I had a friend that hit me up and was like, yo, I'd love to. No, I hit this person up because we always talk about a bunch of things. And I was like, I would love you to partner up with me on this. And like, let's do something together. I got a small percentage for you. You know what I mean? And so they put some investment for it. Like, you know what I mean? It was simple. I'm pretty open book. It was $2,000. And it was like, I was like, all right, we're going to buy a lot. So we bought a lot, and then we just started going from there. And that person's not with that brand anymore. But it was just transit. They're more into, I'm not even hiding the person. My homegirl, Jen, she's a stylist. She does the styling for the brand though. Like when we have photo shoots, even in that process, there was, I get like, and we can kind of start to move towards like, now it's like building a brand. It's like, all right, cool. Like I've never done this before. Now we need a website. So we did simple things like the simple website start was like big cartel. Some people don't know about that before you start moving, but you start moving towards Shopify. But like, it started with that, and that was cool. That was fun. It was easy then. Then you start getting to a place of like accounting, and you start looking like, like figuring all your stuff out, and it's like, wait, I have now. This is full time work. I can't. Like, the parties was cool, but I was like, wow. So I can sell in 3 days of something like a 2 days. I can make $1,000 in sales, and I'm like, I'm doing a party that I'm promoting for 3 weeks, and I'm like getting $1,000. It was like, this is like that 10x rule. This is like I have to put my focus on what's more important right now, and like legacy, like and what it's doing. So I ended up DJ Envy's. I was throwing parties still, but he was somebody I booked all the time. I think I gave him a shirt. Yeah, I don't even remember the process, but I think I gave him a shirt. Then I used to see him then he started the breakfast. Well, the Breakfast Club was already going. So then I saw it on the Breakfast Club, and I was like, yo, they wear my shirt at the Breakfast Club. Yeah, that's crazy. Next thing I know, I was like, I saw him wear it so many times, and I was like, yo, Envy needs another shirt. Well, he really likes his shirt. So, and I started thinking like, maybe I should ask Envy to partner up with me. And then I was like, hold up, God gave you this idea. This was not for you to just give away. So I was like, all right, I'm gonna pray on it. Pray on it, wake up, pray it on one night, wake up the next morning, 6:30, text message. My homegirl was cool with Envy. She texted me, yo, Envy said he wants to link with you to see about possibly partnering up with the brand. And I was like, oh, you know what? That's crazy. All right. I said, this is definitely in alignment with what God wants, because I prayed on it. And, he's, besides just Envy being cool, this a relationship catapulted us from just being associates to friends. So, we really get to have conversations about faith, relationships. He's somebody I can really talk to when it comes to different things, and vice versa. We get to talk about like life and some of the things, or some things that sometimes I throw certain ideas at Envy, and I'm like, being able to assist as a friend and the same vice versa is crazy, because I was just like, I never expected this relationship to build from that. You know what I mean? And because things got tighter, tighter, and then you start realizing like what this brand means to so many people and their ability, like how much it affects people and their ability to express themselves. So, like I always wanted something that proclaimed attention, because, it's such a crazy world we live in when like, it's hard. People don't talk about, like, we're in the middle of I don't know what, this election is crazy, but what we're in the middle of is so crazy, because you can't even, it's weird to ask anybody, hey, who are you voting for? Because that's just considered rude. It's almost the same thing as saying, like, now it's so hard to talk about God in public without offending somebody, without somebody saying, yeah, like, who is your God? Like it's such a controversial topic, but now it's like, if I can create a brand that kind of gives people the opportunity to state who they are without ever having to open their mouth, take a picture with a shirt, and on Instagram is 900 comments about the person, but a lot of comments about the shirt and the message. Some people are like, yes, that message just resonates with me. Sometimes you're walking down the street and people are like, oh my God versus my enemies. I needed to see that today because I just been going through so many attacks. And, a lot of times the conversation wise, it's like people want to know, like, people are asking you, who is your God? You know what I mean? As far as like, what's your like choice of God? And of course, I'm a Christian, and I do believe Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And I'm a full-fledged Christian, but I also am a person that believes in like love is the real religion. You know what I mean? Like God is love. And I feel like a lot of time that like this division that a lot of people have when it comes to faith is what divides us more than anything else. Like I have Muslim friends that, like I respect. I feel like we serve the same God. I just feel like that I know for a fact Jesus Christ is the Son of God, and their faith is more towards like leaned in the words of Prophet Muhammad, which I understand. It's just being able to respect each other faith-wise. And I'm going on a tangent here because I know I've just been talking, but this is just what I do.
Because, you got to a place, and again, I think as we talked even beforehand, I think I wanted to give space for people, one, to understand just the breadth and the comprehensiveness of the journey you've been on. Number two, where you just landed was keen, right? Because I think what people don't see is that, man, there's used to be a saying, is like preach the gospel when necessary. Is like when necessary, use words, right? So there's something that you've given people through clothing an opportunity to proclaim, to show honor to God.
Right.
And it's also an invitation. And I think this is key, because this is now where I want to unpack this. I would say the humility is real, beyond the secondary school stuff, because when it talks about people relating to this, I don't think people fully understand the breadth and the reach that this brand has had around the world. I've gone almost everywhere in the world. It's like I wish I could, like, I didn't have the T-Mobile at this time. I was still Verizon before the whole unlimited thing. We can talk about that later. Right? But T-Mobile had that international situation. So when I was floating, before I was floating, I could have sent them a text. But you would see people everywhere rocking that shirt. And so he may not give, because it's not public in terms of the numbers and reach. But I say this to say, the reason why this brand is so important, it's seen around the world. You'll see leaders, people of all stripes, all backgrounds wearing this, because it is something universal about that message. When did you know, or when did you realize that, oh snap, this thing is really big? So give me one from a individual, that you never knew would be wearing it. And then give me one from you clicked on that, that it was a big cartel maybe before it hit. But we went to Shopify. Oh snap! Whoa, these numbers. Wait, is this for the month? Oh snap! Like, when did? So give us that. I really want people to see the magnitude of impact.
Let me tell you this crazy story. Sorry, I'm doing a protein shake. I'm trying to work out. Turning 39, and when you turn 39, you trying to like get your health back in order.
Got your green drink.
I literally, we're talking. And I'm like, oh my god, I didn't drink my protein shake 40 minutes after the workout.
Oh, bro, man, you need it for 30 minutes, hour. Get it in, good brother.
So that moment for me had to be the first business moment. Now this is when I realized, this is when I started realizing the certain things that you needed. It was a certain period of time when things started booming with the brand a lot, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, yo, this is becoming more work, and I feel like this money just is not making sense right now because the expenses and things like that. But then I got a bookkeeper I started working with. One day she called me and was like, I just realized you have like $40,000 just like sitting in this one account. I said, because I really, at this point, I just didn't understand how we were so busy. And I'm throwing this number out, hopefully this doesn't bite me in later, but it's crazy. This is real though. That was like 2 years ago. So it was like, I was like, seems like we're making money, but then it was not. Then I was like, oh my God. I was like, yo, I really have this money just sitting here that came in upset. What happened was I just had the wrong account linked to incoming sales. So the money was going into an account, but I wasn't seeing it. I was just like, oh my God, this is crazy. That this is how I see how people can like mismanage money just because you're not super attentive. And it's like, well, that's when I realized like, oh shoot, I really gotta tighten up. You know what I mean? As far as that. But that's one thing when I was realized like, oh, this is real business. This is like officially like something. I'm on to something here. And I think the personal one was like, I think it was really, sounds crazy, but I think it was really when Diddy wore it. And I was like, yo, that's major. You know what I mean? Like that moment, I was like, we're on to something. Something is happening here. Like Diddy likes it, and he wore it a couple times. And I ran into some people that were like, I saw Diddy wearing it a couple times. Like he was in meetings. People who work in his like circumference. It was like, yo, that's your brand. I was like, he wears it to all the meetings. And I was like, you know what I mean? I was like, yo, that's amazing. That's what I knew. Like I knew I knew something was brewing.
Brother, this is huge. And those are iconic models. And again, he's being extra humble on this because there's many celebrities who wear that shirt because of the resonance of it. I remember seeing seeing one of the interviews that he did, and you were talking about, I think it was Sister Circle interview, and you were talking about how you even lead your company, right? And so, and how you're like putting God first. And so now this is kind of the portion where I kind of want to kind of break down a bit what it looks like, because a lot of times I think if you've not necessarily grown up around faith, sometimes it could feel like the Christians talking code, right? It's like,
my God,
God spoke to me, or he said this. You like, yo, did he audibly with the Bose speakers? You don't know. And so I almost want you to, one, break down from a work standpoint. Now, actually, I'll even start. When you talk about when you started to be, is like, okay, there was the culture. It was like I started secondary school's culture. When did it become, okay, I really believe this thing versus my parents? Okay, I have like a menu. This is the way I connect to God. This is when I know he speaks to me like this. Like, when did it really become like real for you?
They're not ready for this conversation.
Hey, brother. Hey, brother.
All right, let me tell you, so many times. All right, I'll give you 3 and I'll run it because that can go up forever. Living in Nigeria, I saw something crazy. And that's when I knew spiritual warfare was real, because I was walking to school one day and I was walking down the street and I looked at this house and people were screaming up to this lady and they were yelling up to her, and she was like literally on the balcony, and she, for some reason, her mind thought the building was on fire. So I'm like 7 years old, walking down the street, and I watch her jump. And then I somewhere around the way, I'm having a conversation with somebody, and it was like, yo, somebody said that somebody put some juju on her, and made her, that happen. And I was like, oh, I'm going to church. That's I know. Yeah.
That's
I got to be on one or two sides. That was the first. The second was coming back to the United States. There was this lady that was going to this Nigerian church, and she could not have children. It was just known. They would pray for her every week, every Sunday, every Wednesday when it was private Bible study. They would pray on her all the time. And I was like, one day I went to sleep and I woke up. I went to sleep and I had a dream, and God was like, yo, she's going to have a baby. So then I came to church and I was like, I know it probably sounded crazy to her. I was like 11. I was like, God told me you're going to have a baby. 9 months later, she had a baby. She came up to me and she was like, yo, it felt like when you told me that, I just knew it, like it was happening. And I was like, that's crazy. At that point in time, when she came up pregnant, I was like, oh, shoot, he was not lying. Then there was these moments when I just would always see this lady in white that would just I'd be walking down the street. People who are watching this, don't get spooked out. This is
real.
This is pretty spiritual stuff. So I'm walking down the street. I would see this lady. I saw her 3 times, and she was like, yo, Ladun, you're going to be a great man. And then I would turn around, literally, she would say it. I would say, ha ha, turn around, and she's gone. I'm like, this is crazy. This sounds crazy to some people, but it was real. So this is when I start, in these moments, these are things that reaffirmed that I was on the right path when it came to my relationship with God. You know what I mean? My father had already implemented on it. My father was a super prayer warrior kind of guy. So he helped me establish and really create a relationship with God. So
this is a man. I think the story of fear is something I could relate to, especially initially for me. But I think sometimes I think people can go on the other extreme. They can feel like, oh my gosh, if it's by fear, it's not. It's like, no, fear can get you there. It won't necessarily keep you there, right? And so, right. So powerful that you had that. But I also think that, like I said, I think that people come to God through real life as opposed to just real practices and cultural religion, so to speak. You had real life that kind of pushed you to that. A second thing, which I think is really, really keen, is this idea of man, it became real. It became real to you in prayer and hearing God in that way. I'm interested as it relates to just then how it informs how you work. Because there's one thing to say, okay, you got a brand, my God, my enemies, but how you work. Because let me put this one quote up. So for example, the my God versus my enemies, I can imagine you've heard the gamut, right, from people, right? There's one view which is saying, yo, there's real evil in this world. There's real evil.
Right,
There
right, right.
are real enemies of God and enemies of people of God. And enemies of people. Just look around. I think look at our world today. There's something at work. And then there are people who may see that as, oh, are you saying there's different people and all that? And so, how did you just kind of think about that? If you've ever, have you ever been a part of some interesting conversations like, how'd you get that from this? Just talk to me about just how the message, and then again, there's more messages if people follow the brand. There's more message, but how did the message? What were some of the conversations you've had from it? Have you ever had a conversation where it's kind of like, wow, I never thought that that's what you would get from it? Versus, oh man, this is so talk me through about that, and then we'll talk about kind of how you approach your team.
I think a lot of people definitely ask me like where like the message "My God versus My Enemies" came from, because the brand actually is called Covered by God, right?
Mm-hmm.
So originally started with Body of God, and I think the message "My God versus My Enemies," I think for me at the point in time I was dealing with, like I said, like just the depression and the anxiety, and it's realizing like, I was like, I really don't have no enemies, like physical people that I would be like I'm almost sure if I'm walking down the street and a brick falls off a building and hits me on my head, I'm most likely gonna assume that the brick just happened to fall out of the building, because I would never think somebody did that to me. Because I just
the
I
enemy, I know the enemy is after me. Oh.
Exactly. I'm like I do right by people. You know what I mean? And so, but the real enemies that you deal with is the internal battle. You know what I mean? It's the internal battle. So that's where like my enemies come from, is like it can be depression, it could be anxiety, it could just be yourself and what you see in yourself. And sometimes the biggest problem is sometimes when there's this anointing and calling on your life, there's like a lot, you're just dealing with pressure all the time. The pressure is your enemy. You know what I mean? Like that kind of stuff, like dealing with people, like people pull and pull and pull from you all day, every day. It's like, I have a friend of mine that says, yo, Ladun, you're like, and there's no comparison to Jesus, but you just kind of have that calling where you're always having to deal with people all the time. But you just don't have the same supernatural nature that Jesus has to automatically restore himself. You know what I mean? So like I'm constant. Yeah, absolutely. So I don't have that, but I do the same. Like I'm constantly in like relations with people of all different types and sorts, whether it's friends, whether it's associates, whether it's people from social media that I've never met, and they just like they're in different parts of the world and they like want to have conversations with me. And people are constantly tugging at me and then trying to run a business, and then also just being under scrutiny those are your mind is the biggest thing. That if the enemy wants anything, it's your mind. You know what I mean? So your mind is the one thing you got to protect. So that's legit probably where I am and where I stand when it just comes to the brand. You know what I mean? It's like it's a constant journey of like, it's not just about like physical enemies. It's about like yourself, the internal battle. You know what I mean? So that's where that.
I think people need to hear that, right? Because I think it even expands. I think how people self-identify, and I think people have, right? I think they've seen the message, they hear it. Yeah, I heard something this past weekend, but shout out to Bishop Rodriguez, Jersey City. He said like, we don't see things as they are, we see things as we are. And so
right.
Someone's coming to that based on what that enemy is in them, right? And so I think people could relate to this. You talk about even breast cancer month, October, and people say F cancer, right? They frame that as the enemy, right? To something that's good, to something that was designed to be healthy, perfect, with people's bodies. And so,
right,
that is, man, I think that's really empowering, man, and that's tremendous. And I think people hearing that's important. I also want to get into, I just wonder how that flows into how you work, meaning your team, how you relate. How does God anchor just beyond you kind of say, okay, I'm gonna be a good person and be for God, but how does it inform like your practices? How what you do with your budget, how you think about planning. Just talk to me about how that informs what that looks like from the Covered by God team. Like, what does that look like?
It's a constant journey every day because you think, just like in realizing how I can be better daily. Because it's like you realize as you go along in life and being an entrepreneur, it's like you learn that you can be better. Sometimes you just have to walk away from the table sometimes and take a step back out and look at yourself because, in how you deal with people, your relationships with people, because as you begin to elevate, the pressure only gets like increases more. You know what I mean? And how you deal with your friends, your family. Sometimes you realize you say things a certain way that you normally wouldn't have said it because of the pressure that you have under you, that you're under. You know what I mean? And it's just constantly being able to say and surround yourself with people. Like now more than ever, I'm at these tables and in these rooms with different people who are successful. So I'm constantly a student of how to be better and how do I deal with my team. And more importantly, how do I just like put love on everything, which is like love. I always say love transpires to God. God is love and love is God. So it's like being able to sometimes like trust your team and having people that are in place. And sometimes just being a leader, sometimes you just automatically, not to say that everything is you're right with everything, because I've learned I'm not, but a lot of times you have to really just be able to pull back and just like let somebody else do what they say they're doing and empower them. And you got to empower your team. And it's a constant journey because sometimes your focus is like, how can I make the brand more successful? But you want to make sure that your people on your team are happy with being with the team, because just because you run a godly brand does not make you godly. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? That's just like, it's not like you're constantly in places where that your spirit, man, you just have to constantly like, I think it's purge your spirit, you know what I mean? And just like focus on the things that you're not perfect on and who you're around and how you feel when you're around these people. So it's like as a leader, it just requires constant self-awareness and thinking how you can be better and making sure that the money doesn't motivate you. Like I love money. Everyone loves money because it can change your life, but when you get so like caught up on money, it's almost like, and people hate using the word the universe, but there's so many separations to the universe and God. When you say the universe, I'm just thinking about the thing you speak out into the world. And that's when I say the universe. So like when you're constantly saying, I want, you're saying, I don't have. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like people like, yeah, you want more money, but like just be more focused on the work, you know what I mean? The work and being like, it's just more important to like focus on the work that you're doing, the message you're putting out there. How can you make sure what you're doing is it in alignment with what God still wants? You know what I mean? And that's the journey that comes with like working with the team and making sure that the people, and you learn more than ever. The biggest thing that I focus in that's a journey for me is that and understanding like people are seasons in your life, you know what I mean? And that comes with business as well. Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes you want to keep people involved in your business that sometimes that season with them is over. And sometimes that's the same thing with relationships. So like the hardest part for me is my heart is for the people, no matter what. My friends is whoever. And there are people that can do me wrong. I'm just always going to be like, there's still some humanity left in them. But sometimes people aren't supposed to go on the next journey with you. And if you're not careful and if you don't pay attention to the discernment that God gives you, that, you'll stagnate yourself and your brand, and God will be like, well, I could give this blessing to somebody else. I can have somebody else can continue this purpose and this mission that I have given to him, because he's, just like Saul. Saul was that person. And then God had to take that what is it? The man? Why is that word not? Mantle. Goodness. Sometimes brain farts. Take that mantle off and then pass it to the next purple. But yeah, that's the real journey right there. Being able to like let some seasons go.
Brother, this is you dropping gems, but we expect no less from brother. We're kind of in the stretch here, and I think particularly especially for brothers and sisters, one of the things I think in pulling back the veil of how does God like live in your life, so to speak. I'm very big on, I think as brothers, we I think we thrive on structure. Nipsey talks about that a lot, how he's kind of floating.
Right.
He was like, we need structure. Like, so now when you talk about, you're like, how do you, because you can only lead people to where you are. And so, and you're being drawn by so many people. How do you stay healthy? So what does a life with God look like for you? Like, walk me through a day in the life. How, now at this stage, knowing what you've gone through, not saying that it's perfect today, you just say, how do you guard yourself? What does the rhythm and routine look like so that you are the healthiest spiritually, mentally, so you could show up as great for your team and obviously the world, man?
A lot of prayer. I could do more fasting because I used to fast weekly, but I could definitely do more fasting. But that was definitely very helpful in who I am. Just not too much of anything. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just not, I do work out a lot. Maybe I might do too much of that because it's working out it's if you slack for a minute, man. And that's like, there's some of these things that we just take. And this is crazy. I'm saying it to you, but it's like a revelation to me. Sometimes the things that you put a lot of emphasis into can, it's just balance. You know what I mean? Like, it's just really balance. The same amount of time when it comes to your business, if you can be in the gym and fully focused in the gym for an hour and a half, 2 hours, same thing you can do with your business is like sitting down and just like not assuming everything's on autopilot. But a day for me, there's meditation, is interactions with my friends daily, not physical interactions, but a lot of times interactions in group chat. Have this group chat that's constantly going. Social media could do way less of that, but at the same time, it's just like you're the battle of being like an influencer. But you have to, like, this thing called Teach Me Tuesday. I didn't even do it yesterday 2 days ago because of the election. I was so like on edge. So it's like social media I could do less of, but at the same time, it's how people interact with me that are, just you check your DM sometimes. Somebody tells you, oh my God, what you're doing with the brand has changed my life. So sometimes you find your encouragement in there, but I don't really try to dwell too much on that. I do. We haven't had church since March, so I'm watching church on YouTube. I watch Darius Daniels all the time. TD Jakes, I haven't watched in the last couple of weeks because I've just been on my Darius Daniels wave. That's a real prophet to me that I, can't go wrong with the TD Jakes word no matter what.
I said he's had some some what I call like classic, like an album, like Blueprint, or like, I'm saying, like,
there's certain sermons, old sermons that you could put, if you could line them up. These are top 20 right here. You know what I mean? I do listen to a lot of, I'm getting ready. Eventually I'll start a podcast when my team comes together. We've been working on it. A lot of self-work. I listen to Lewis Howes. I listen to Jay Shetty. I listen to Brene Brown because that's a self-work. I always balance the two. One of each daily. There's a sermon I listen to, and then there's a self-help that I listen to that kind of just helps you like really dig deep inside and be like, yo, you really could work on that part a little bit more. You can really be better in that angle. You know what I mean? Even, I listen to Mark Groves. He's a relational person. He's very good, very like straight to the point. Journal could do better on that because some days I'd just be too embarrassed to write some of the stuff. I'd be like, nope, not right today. Today was not exactly how it was supposed to go, but it's important right there so you can look back on those things. You know what I mean? So these are my daily, like, you know what I mean? I walk my dog, like with my girlfriend once a day for sure.
Brother,
we don't live together.
Yeah.
But relational work is another journey itself. You know what I mean?
Tell me about it, brother. I'm looking.
You know what I mean?
I ain't gonna have people read into that. But
I'm just saying relationships is work. It's just period. That's what it comes down to, and it's not a bad thing because I'm at that age. You can be in that gray area. There's a gray area. Once you pass, you become that traveling uncle. Because if you don't know how to learn, if you don't learn how to be with one person, and I mean, not to say people have to, because some people just are just very focused and say, hey, monogamy is not my thing. Not monogamy. Some people just say marriage is not their thing, but they just don't. They don't even believe monogamy is natural. They believe they could be with a person for 10 years, and 10 years later, it's somebody new. But yeah, but it's like realistically, if you don't learn how to focus on one person and deal with, the ups and downs of life, you'll never get there. Because it's just like what you focus on maximizes. You know what I mean? And that's what it is. Like whether it's a relationship, whether it's business, you got to be focused. And, it's social media has it so easy. Like, you you go into an argument with your person and then there's somebody like, hey, boo. It's like, I needed this breath of fresh air today. And then, Instagram, because, it really goes down in the DM. So you got to be careful, man. Right. Like you got to be very... It's a lot. It's a lot,
brother. You give it, like I said, like you give it, and so we're gonna have to do a return to, because I think right now, what I would love, because what's interesting about the apparel, I'm saying what's interesting about the apparel business is that in some ways, like that, I can understand even the tension and the weight you feel. Right? You're like, okay, this is selling, but like, will it always? And then you're always trying to innovate, and you're almost trying to get ahead of what people would like. And you're almost trying to apple people a bit, like, all right, they don't know they want this yet, and all that. So I guess now set us up, set the community up for like, what do you got going on moving forward? How can we support you? What's going on? And then I want you to kind of give a closing thought on about the moment. So let's start with what do you got going on? What's coming up in the Cover to God lineup?
I mean, right now we're in fourth quarter. It's just getting ready for Black Friday and the holidays because this is a big season for us. Making sure we're in the right places and also trying to understand marketing, trying to understand there's no longer, after a while, it's no longer just you're hot. Like, now you got to be very innovative as far as like how you market to people. And that's really the focus. How can the brand be better on that end and focusing on how to get ready for the fall? I mean, the spring and summer time, get ready early. So I didn't come in a game like this. But we're also dealing with a different day and age when it comes to fashion. It's no longer like, before social media, you had to prep your seasons all the way. Some people now are just dropping their seasons. They're getting ready as they go along just because now you can put it on social media and people are buying it. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
It's all good.
So I'm not sure. Is that mine?
No,
okay, yeah.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, so that's just all part of the journey itself right now, that when it comes to being a entrepreneur as far as running a brand in the fourth quarter. If I can get this podcast rolling, it's called The Unconventional. Well, maybe I should hold off on that. Nah, you know what it is? I'll bring that back on the next show.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Y'all, this has been this has been a blessing, and I kind of like keeping it on attention where there's still more to share, because it gives people kind of a view of like, man, there's a lot going on, and I think there's a lot for us to kind of take and follow.
Yeah. There's more. Next time we can get into the nitty gritty of the brand of what like.
Exactly. There's a lot.
Nitty-gritty.
Brother, man, I want to thank you. I want to thank you for your obedience. I want to thank you that you didn't tap out, that you stayed, that you kept at the race. You're finishing your race, and that you have a brand that, like you said, your impact is innumerable. People wear that, they see it in the morning, and it kind of anchors them to say, I do have a God that's mine. Right. And that's just one message amongst many others.
Yeah.
I want to thank you, brother to brother. I have so much respect for you. And I do think that so many people are going to take so much away from beyond the message, the journey, and recognizing that it wasn't necessarily the most linear journey. Like none of us has that, but ultimately that you're still taking that face step. And so, brother, man, all honor and respect, man. I'm grateful that you can kind of be with us for this.
And you too, man. I appreciate the vulnerability of what you do, the honesty of it, and just being like super like transparent, you know what I mean? Because that's one thing that's important to me is transparency, and that's kind of like what's helped the brand get where it is, just being transparent.
Most definitely, good brother, man. Well, I thank you, man, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon, good brother. All right, we holler.
Yes, sir. Right. Same here, man. Right. Peace.
Peace.